Welcome, everybody. This is Tesla Today. So while we're all watching Tesla stock gaining momentum, improving every day, and we're seeing that they were heading into an economy that's booming, it's a lot easier for many of us to start getting excited again about Tesla and its future. But so many are still thinking, wait until 2030. That's when things are going to look better. Well, today we have Randy Kirk with us, and he's going to share with us his reasons why he thinks you don't have to wait till 2030. It will all happen by 2026, just a few short years. That is going to be a key year when a lot of things that Tesla's been projecting is going to matter, and that's when everything's going to look good for the stock. Welcome, Randy. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Can't be better. What a great
You're
year.
always doing great. Yeah.
Well, yeah.
And
but everybody's a genius in a bull market. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Well, that's one of the topics we'll talk about today, is because you have been pretty bullish, uber bullish, hyper bullish in Tesla. And a lot of folks couldn't handle it when it was during a recession, when the stock was compressed. But now that it's improving, some of your projections are starting to look a little bit more achievable. Some are still not. We'll talk about this. But Randy Kirk has his own YouTube channel. You check him out at Randy W. Kirk. He's got a Twitter as well. And he's got videos he's pumping out 2 a day, explaining all sorts of his thinking and his projections as well. So today we got lucky to share that with him. So Randy, start with 2026 is key. Tell me why, what you expect to happen by 2026, and why specifically this particular year.
So it occurred to me that a lot of us, I think you may be just the same. A lot of us are sitting here going, okay, the big deals are really Optimus and robotaxis. I mean, Elon keeps saying over and over again, and now you've got analysts coming out and saying, like Kathy Wood and Tom, I forget his last name, coming out and saying, a big part of our projections in terms of the future profits of Tesla are robotaxi. Now, Kathy hasn't put the Optimus in yet, but these are the 2 biggies. These are bigger than anything else that Tesla is doing, way bigger than the cars, way bigger than energy. And so we're all sitting here on pins and needles every year thinking, okay, next year will be the year that robotaxis will be out. So I thought, okay, rather than look at 2030, when could I put almost 100% likelihood on robotaxis being done? And maybe try to project onto the community out there, when could they put almost, let's say, an 80% likelihood of robotaxis being done? So today I actually ran a poll, and the poll came out that 50% of the community out there in that poll, wasn't a lot of people, it was only a couple hundred votes, but about 50% said, yeah, we think there's an 80% chance, a 60% or higher chance of robotaxi being out by 2026. And about 45% said they had about the same feeling, 60% chance that Optimus would be out by 2026 making money. Now, I think those are really way, I think it'll happen sooner. I'm sure there's an awful lot of people that think it'll happen sooner, but it seemed like, okay, in doing a risk analysis, we're investors. What do you do when you're an investor? You do a risk analysis. When do I think the great come and get it day is going to happen? And so 2026 became kind of the year that I thought, I think we're pretty confident that that's when it's going to pop. So what would it look like in 2026? What would the earnings look like in 2026? What would the stock price, the value, let's call it, the fundamental value of Tesla look like in 2026 if we just popped in a reasonable number of cars, a reasonable amount of energy, some Optimus, some robotaxis, some services, et cetera, and try to be a bit conservative?
Yeah, so I love everything you're just saying there. So obviously 2026. So we have to define what you're saying by robotaxi, and we have to define what you're saying about bots. And then, of course, we're also talking about the stock price. And so in those 2 cases, I believe that you don't need to be selling the bots or the robotaxi in huge numbers for the stock to reflect it, because all the stock needs to do to jump up is the realization by the investors worldwide, to recognize that this is inevitable. And I don't believe that you need to show, oh, well, we sold $2 million worth of robotaxi this year or $2 million worth of bots this year. Therefore, I'm going to give it a multiple based on that number. That's not the case. Once people figure out that this thing is friggin' valid, they will, they will jack up the stock price. It's almost like, when you invest in a biotech, technology, you don't do it based on revenue. You do it based on, if this gets approved, this is how big the market is, and then we're going to do it. So it's inevitable. So that part, I agree with the stock price jumping by 2026. The question is, when is robotaxi going to be available? And you think it's going to be earlier, but you gave me some stats there. So tell me what your definition is, robotaxi and bots.
Yeah. So the definition of robotaxi being available would be robotaxi being available. I mean, if it's in one city, or if it's in 10 cities, or if it's in half the states in the United States, or 20 countries around the world, doesn't really matter. It's availability. So I agree with you on what makes the stock jump initially is a reality. Okay, I believe it now. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when. But it does also respond to execution. So when you start to see the real execution, it's one thing to say that a robot could have some use cases. It's another thing to say that 1 million people buy it. Okay, yeah. That puts it on a whole new level. So I do have some projections on that, on what I think. And again, I tried to be as conservative as possible, and I actually created a base case and a bear case, so that I could really be conservative with the bear case. So you've got and the bots, the same thing. It's like, well, you make the bots, you start to deploy them in factory at some point between now and 2026. You deploy a few more in the factory. You really get it done. Now you start to ramp up. You put it out for sale, and in 2026 you sell a bunch. And what's that bunch? What does that mean? That's what I tried to do.
Okay, well, let's get there. But I do want to just mention, I was looking for this. That's why I was searching for this. But Elon was just interviewed at the Viva Tech conference a few days ago. He was asked the question, "What do you think about the market cap of Tesla?" And I didn't like his answer, Elon's answer, but this is what he said. So it goes, "Valuations are a strange thing. Sometimes I've said, hey, I think the stock price is too high at Tesla," and then the stock price goes up. I'm like, okay. But then he says this, "Really, the value of the company is primarily on the basis of autonomy. If you look at our total vehicle output, it's almost 2 million vehicles this year or something like that, but that's only 2% of total vehicle production. The potential for autonomy is that the value of autonomy is so high that even if you have a discount, a percentage probability of autonomy happening, that is so incredibly valuable." So it's kind of like speaking to what you and I were just saying here, that you don't need to wait until autonomy actually happens and people already kind of start discounting. I don't agree that the today's stock price is already have some autonomy in it. Do you think it does?
Oh, I think it has some. Okay, so the retail investors like you and I, we're partially in the game because there's this crazy future out there. We might, I have a tiny bit of money over in ARK Invest. That's not because I don't trust Tesla to be the best deal ever. It's just fun to have a couple of other diverse things going on. But there's other people out there that have a lot of diversity, people that really like Tesla a lot, that still have money in the bond market or have money in the, mutual funds, or have it they're still buying property instead of buying Tesla. So, everybody's not quite as crazy as the all-in crowd. And so you've got, how do you get those folks to spend more? You impress them with the fact that robotaxi is really a thing.
Okay. Let's get to the numbers. Show me some of your thinking. Yeah.
All right. So what I've tried to do here again is project out reasonable numbers, pretty, expected numbers for 2026 in the categories of things that we're already doing, that Tesla's already doing. So with Sexy and the CyberTruck coming up, and the new cars coming out of Mexico, or the Gen 3 cars, that should be included in that top line. So the Model Y, Model 3, the S's and the X's, even the supercar, and then of course the Gen 3s and the Cybertrucks, put them all together, 6 million units in 2026 should be an easy get. Yeah, some people, can say, oh, it's only going to be 5, but if we got that 50% per year number, that would take us to around 6 million. The basic selling price, the average selling price, I came up with 45,000 each, and people are like, yeah, but you're going to have all those Gen 3 cars. Isn't that going to lower the price a lot? Well, yeah, but you're going to have a ton of Model Ys by that time, probably over 2 million Model Ys out of that 6 million, which is going to raise the average selling price. So I'm sticking with $45 for now. Again, you can drop it by a couple of bucks, $2 or $3, $4, $5 if you want to, do your own game. So total revenue, 270 billion, 22% margins. I'm not raising the margins between now and then because I think the Gen 3 cars might have a little lower margins. So that gives you a profit of 59 billion for just sexy and cyber. Okay. That doesn't count. No subtraction there for overhead. Any questions?
No, I like this. I like the 6 million units by 2026.
Right.
We're at 2 million right now in 2023. We should get to 3 in a bit by 2024. We should get to 5 by 2025. So I like this. Yeah.
All right. Mega packs. We're sitting on a facility in Lathrop that can do 10K. And we're talking about Shanghai that can do 10K. Everybody, I didn't get one objection by anybody to this 50K number because that's only talking about either opening 3 more facilities between now and 2026 and or increasing the amount they could do at Lathrop or Shanghai. I think they'll put a facility in Texas for sure, probably one in Mexico, and then maybe one in Europe. So that would be 3 easy ones that I think most people can foresee are probably going to happen. But anyway, so 50,000 mega packs at 2 million each is 100 billion in sales. 30% margins is what Elon said they're shooting for. So that's 30 billion in profit. Thoughts?
20 billion of sales is very doable with Lathrop now.
Mm-hmm.
So, and they can produce these megapack factories very quickly. They already announced the expansion Nevada. They've announced the Shanghai. That will take till 2024, end of 2024, to get them both up, let's say 20 billion each. Now you're 60 billion. That's why you're giving yourself 2 more years, 2025, 2026. I think it's a bit of a stretch because obviously this is all relying on the fact that there's no battery constraints for both your 6 million units plus your 50,000 mega packs. Okay, I'd say this is a little bit of a stretch, but not terrible in my mind.
And they don't depend on 4680s. This is, this can be from anybody. They're not the 4680s, probably, at least at first. Services, I forget which pundit it was the other day, what the analyst who said that they should be doing 10 billion in services by next year, by 2024. So I said, okay, 20 billion by 2026, that should be a number. We've got all these services, insurance.
Depends on what's in there. And I have no idea what's in services.
Well, you've got insurance, and you've got all of the charging stations, which are now going to be open to everybody. You've got SaaS. You've got potential for Dojo as a service. You've got all of the used car sales. You've got the maintenance, at the service centers. You've got accessories that you're going to sell through the service centers. I mean, the list is very long of these services, and 20 billion by 2026, I think, is probably even low because the insurance thing is probably going to be ramping up really, really quickly.
Okay. This one, I have no idea. I have no idea. Like, I don't put a lot in the supercharger. I think the numbers could be 3 to 5 billion in 2030. So I don't think it's going to be a lot.
No, 3 to 5, you mean 3 to 5 billion of profit.
Yeah. Okay. Yes. True.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. This is just sales. So 20 billion in sales.
Revenue.
I put a 70% margin on it for 14 billion in profit.
But I don't know what else makes this up. So yeah, that seems like a big number. Okay. Keep going.
So then we get to semi. Now, of course, I'm a big semi guy. I love my semis. And unfortunately, we've been kicked back a year. But Elon has said that in the first year, which was supposed to be 2024, that they would make, I think he said 40,000, but somebody else the other day quoted him as saying 50,000, whichever number you want to pick. If we kick it back a year, and I think it's a pretty solid case can be made that they will be making 40 to 50,000 of these in 2025. And that would mean, 2025, and that would mean they should easily be able to ramp, based on every ramp we've seen of cars thus far, it shouldn't be a hard thing to go from 50,000 to 100,000 in 1 year. So I'm saying 100,000, that at 350,000 each, 35 billion in revenue, 30% margin is 10.5 billion in profit.
Okay. I mean, we know the semi's been absolutely delayed for next year, 2024, till the end of next year. And that's because of battery constraints. He's already said that. So that part is where it's concerning. If it gets going, and then they still did say 50K 2025. So this one, again, I think it's a little aggressive. And the 350,000 ASP might be high. Yeah, that's a little, I think, way too high. But
okay.
Yeah.
All right. So now we get to Optimus, my favorite product in the world. I love Optimus more than anything else. So Optimus, I'm saying in 2026, they will produce and ship and probably lease, and this is going to be based on lease, they will lease 5 million units. Now, truly, I think they'll start leasing them in 2024, and they'll still be leasing them and more of them in 2025. So the 2026 number will actually be a cumulative total up to 5 million. But even if they only built, 500,000 in 2025, they could easily produce and ship 5 million in 2026. This is not like a car. This is once they make this line, it'll pump them out like crazy. So that's my number is 5 million. But now this number is probably low. I put the $40,000 profit, that's a $40,000 profit per year. Okay, that's not the total lease price. It might be 43,000 or 44,000, but I'm just basing on the idea that they will generate a profit, an operating profit of $40,000 per year on every one of those units that's out there. Now, we compare it to what it's going to replace. If it replaces one $17 an hour employee, it's worth 40,000. It's worth more than 40,000. If it replaces two of those, it's worth 80,000. If it replaces three of those, and if it replaces one $100,000 a year employee, it's worth a lot. So 40,000 is probably a low number. The big pushback that I get from people is, oh, Elon's not going to want to take a $6,000 product and lease it for $40,000 a year. That's just not who Elon is. He's not going to want to, create this huge profiteering situation. And well, the answer to that is if he doesn't, somebody else will. Whoever he leases it to will just turn around and lease it for 40,000. If he leases it for 20,000 and there's a market at 40,000. So you don't want to set up a situation where you have third-party profiteers. The person who should profit off it is the Tesla stockholders. So that's my number, $40,000 a year. That's $200 billion in revenue, and it's 100% profit because we already took out the overhead. So that leaves $200 billion in profit just for Optimus. So this is where it really gets super interesting, because this is what Elon has said all along, is that Optimus will be equal to the profits of everything else combined. So if you look at all of the ones we've already looked at, it adds up to pretty close to 100 billion. Then you look at my robotaxi numbers, another 100 billion, and Optimus all by itself is 200 billion. Now, all of these numbers could switch around and be higher or lower, whatever, but it gives you a direction. It gives you a look at what it's really going to mean to have Optimus in the mix.
Okay, so this is where it's very, very important that we get these two lines correct, Optimus and robotaxi. Clearly, we're talking $308 billion worth. And so this is what makes or breaks 2026 or not, right? So the rest I kind of agree with. I can see that. And even if we were wrong about semi or services, it's a rounding error to what we're doing here. But do we believe that Optimus and robotaxi will be for sale by 2026? So you got 2024, 2025, you got 2.5 years. And I agree with you that Optimus is absolutely going to come faster than people realize. I've been interviewing all sorts of experts in this space, and they have said that as you know, we know that creating the bot itself is not that hard. They've done the hard part of it, being able to move its hands and being able to walk, and having some enough brains to be able to be taught some action, and using the vision AI to recognize the objects and then use it to grab it. So I agree with you that it could be by the end of this year, even by next year, it's going to be valuable and sold, even if it's a very, very specific use case. There is enough companies out there that will buy 5 million units by 2026 to use it for a very, very, very specific use case. Like, it doesn't have to be this thing that can fold laundry. It's not going to be sold to consumers. So I do think that it's actually achievable for Tesla to create 5 million and to sell 5 million. And the ASP actually does sound right to me. Like, I mean, $40,000 of profit to, sorry, that's revenue?
No, that's profit.
That's profit.
So the revenue might be a little bit higher, but the costs are almost nothing. The only cost you really have is that $6,000 cost to build it. And then you've probably got maybe $1,000 or $2,000 a year of customer service, you know, to help people make it more useful.
So this is, you know, very big number, 200 billion. I'm with you. I do think it's possible, but the question is, you know, it's like, it's one of those things, right? If it's happening, it's happening, and it's going to happen. It's going to happen really quickly. It doesn't take a lot more than people realize. And the question you have to ask yourself is, do you think that you can sell 5 million of these for a very specific use case? And so just Tesla alone has said that, Tom Ju has said that for Giga Nueva Leon, they're going to have 5,000 bots for Giga Nueva Leon. And so the question is, do you think that they'll sell 5 million, which is a huge number? I think the number's there, but would they do it by 2026? That's the big question.
And if it's 4 million or 3 million or 2 million, and then it's 5 million the next year, I mean, because remember, it's cumulative.
Yeah.
So if they sell 3 million in 2026 and 3 million more in 2027, now it's 6 million.
And like I'm saying, if you're talking about the stock, I don't think you need to be selling huge numbers. Just the fact that they're selling some number and proving it works, the stock will already skyrocket, as far as I'm concerned. That the robotaxi is interesting. Do you want to explain that one?
Sure. I'm thinking that there will be, I don't remember my math now, but I want to say it was around 12 million robotaxi ready vehicles on the road out there. And I'm going to say that 50% of those people decide to put their car out sometime. And that they're going to put it out enough to where it's about 50 hours a week that they're letting their car be out there as a robotaxi. Now, it might be less. It could be 5 million or 3 million or 10, but this is just a number. I'm pulling it out of the air. We don't know what percentage of people will allow their cars to go into robotaxis. And we don't know if they'll let them out for 50 hours or for 100 hours. 50 hours is actually a number that Elon has used. Okay. So I did pull that one from Elon as his projection. So then you've got the average selling price. Well, that's based on that 50 hours a week, with Tesla taking 25 cents of that 50 hours. So I forget how many miles. I've got it figured out someplace else, but it's 20. So it's 50. I think it was 5,000 miles a month, I think is about right. Somewhere in that ballpark, about 5,000 miles a month average that these cars will do if they're out for 50 hours a week. At 25 cents a mile, that's where I come up with my $108 billion in revenue. There's, again, virtually no overhead on that. So I just gave it 100% for now, of giving $108 billion. Now, again, what Elon has said is that robotaxi will be bigger than all the others, not including Optimus. So once again, you see that the 108 is about the same as all of the others. Now, I didn't do that on purpose, but it's just obvious that, I mean, these numbers they could be lower, they could be high, robotaxi and Optimus, but they're reasonable. They're not crazy numbers.
Yeah, I think this is crazy. In a sense that 6 million cars units by 2026 would be, I think, way too high. You know, you're saying 50% of the fleet. No, it's not going to be. No, not everybody's going to be using it. And not every location is going to be ready, robotaxi ready by 2026. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's going to be much lower than this.
So let's say that it's 2 million.
Yeah.
it's still, and then it's 6 million in
Yeah,
2028.
yeah.
It's just,
So you take these whole numbers, you basically did a total of the total profit, if all of this is correct. Then you added overhead, so you subtracted the overhead 30
subtracted
billion,
overhead. Yep.
You subtracted the tax, you get the $300 billion of profit. You're saying that this is triple apple of profit today.
Yes.
Yeah.
So if you use their same market cap and they have a 30 PE, they're at 3 trillion. So this would put Tesla at $9 trillion of market cap.
This would put Tesla at $9 trillion of market cap. And this is where we're saying that even if these numbers were wrong, you can cut that by, let's say, just 30%. You're at 3 trillion, and that's already 4 times, 5 times what it is now by 2026.
Yes.
Yeah. That's what I like. Okay. I love this. So then this is based on this idea that the robotaxi, do we think it's going to be, that's the one I don't know if you're going to start generating revenue by then. Bots, I think you will. That one, I'm telling you, it's going to be sooner, faster, because I think it's going to be manufacturers buying this thing for very specific, simple jobs that just grab something, moves it, and puts it somewhere else, and that's it. And it's like heavy stuff, not fluffy things, So it can already be done. But
the thing that I didn't even include in there in terms of robotaxi is Tesla's own fleet. So they're going to start. They will probably start making a robotaxi ready vehicle in 2025 in the new facility in Mexico, and so they may start deploying if FSD is ready. They may start deploying those in their own fleet, and they're going to make way more. They're going to make the whole dollar on those as opposed to 25 cents. So, it could be. I mean, I didn't even throw that one in. I didn't bother to go there.
Well, it's you remember how many cars they can make in a year, right. And then you were selling that as part of the sexy line.
Yes.
And so
yes, exactly.
It'll kind of eat off that because they are limited in how many cars they can make a year. They are limited with the batteries. So these numbers do top out in terms of, they are. But I keep saying, though, do you agree with my statement that at some point, if robotaxi is even happening, even one car is doing it, even if one bot has been sold, that is almost enough for the stock to skyrocket because they will know that it's doable. I mean, I don't know how much it'll skyrocket, but it'll certainly, it's forward looking. So they should already be anticipating, how big the market is.
Well, and how much they can make. My statement all along has been that the day that Elon comes out and says that you can drive your car from the back seat, the stock will go crazy. Okay, because it'll either go crazy or it'll sink like a rock because he'll be basically saying, and we'll be liable no matter what happens. We're putting ourselves on the line from liability standpoint. So maybe some people will go, oh my gosh, that's horrible. But the more likelihood is, if he says it's ready to go, it's ready to go. And, by that time we would have Chuck Cook and others will be out there driving it around and saying, all I do is sit here now.
Love it. Okay. So I agree with you. So I like a lot of what you're saying. So basically this notion that people are thinking, I have to wait till 2030 before I'm going to make really good money. You don't. You might just need to wait only 2026. 2024 is next year, 2025, and then 2026. In 3 years, how fast things can change in Tesla. But the thing that people aren't remembering is that 3 years ago, we did not have 3 different megapack factories and gigafactories. We didn't have $22 billion in the bank. We didn't even start Tesla bot yet or lithium refinery. You know what I mean? So all these things that has already happened and we're here, and the numbers are going to go wonkers in terms of how much cash they're going to get for the doubling of sales in the cars and the profits going up. And so it's like, these things are it's like exponential how fast these things can happen. So I like this idea very much. Let's talk the conversation about, making projections, right? So you are considered an uber bull, a hyper bull, and a lot of things you were saying, it's kind of out there. Even some people watching this are thinking that some of the numbers out there is just crazy. Tell me about your thought process. How do you feel comfortable making these things? And how do you compare yourself to, let's say, measured bulls, as some people might say?
Yeah. So first of all, I've been doing this pretty much my entire life. So as I owned companies, manufacturers, importers, distributors, et cetera. As I owned these companies, I had to make projections every year. And commonly I was making them more often than not 3 years in advance. And I had all of the information in front of me. I mean, nobody had more knowledge than I did. It'd be like Elon now. I mean, I knew who the customers were. I knew what they were, by customer, what they were selling. We were selling Target and Kmart and Toys R Us, all these companies. Toys R Us gone. Anyway, it's a while back. But we were selling these companies and we knew what they did last year. We could pretty easily project what they're going to do next year, except for things like recessions or anyway. No matter what you do, you're wrong. You know, it's really hard to get it right. No matter what you do, because one customer goes bankrupt and it changes everything, or a couple, you know, you have a recession, it changes everything. Or you have absolutely a crazy year and it changes everything. So, or you have a pandemic and it changes, really changes. Anyway, so in this analysis, I can only do what I've got my hands on, okay? So I have my hands on Elon's statements. If he says he's going to sell 40,000 semi-trucks in 2024, that's his expectation. He's sitting there with way more information than I've got, and that's what he says he's going to do. But things go wrong. The 4680 cell line doesn't go up as fast as he was hoping, and all of a sudden he's like, need to pull back just a little bit on that semi-plan. You know, you never know where those things are going to go wrong or where things are going to go really much better than you expect. Sometimes they go better. So I listen to what Elon says. I very, very carefully. And I say, okay, this is what Elon says. How do I plot that? Maybe it's not Elon. Maybe it's Zach. You know, maybe it's somebody else in the executive team that makes a statement. I take the statement. This is what I think, based on what they've said, this looks like where they're planning to go. Now, there's sometimes I don't have that information. One of the big ones is semi-trucks. He's never said we're going to do 1 million semi-trucks in 2030. He's never said anything past what he thought he was going to do in 2024, except for the plan 3. They had a picture of a semi-truck, and it gave some indication of how many the world would need in 2030, but it didn't necessarily parse out and say, here's how many Tesla will do. I think it would be stupid not to make 1 million trucks by 2030, but be that as it may, I don't have that. So sometimes I'm extrapolating and I'm saying, given a company that has all of the financial resources they could possibly, the financial resources are unlimited. They can sell stock tomorrow. They could go to the banks tomorrow, and they got $23 billion uninhibited in their account right now. So building the plants to build semi-trucks, no big deal. Yeah. As an example, okay? So I'll do an extrapolation based on what their capabilities are, what I think they can do in terms of construction teams and being able to get out there and do it, what I see the limitations are, like the limiting factor. I love his show. You know, what's the limitation on building a robot? Well, like you, I've had all these experts on my show, and the experts are telling me, you know what? It's not hard to do injection molding. It's not hard to do metal fabrication. It's not hard to pop those babies together like Legos. Yep. You know, it's not that hard. And I've been a manufacturer. I was a manufacturer for 30 years. And I look at that robot and I go, no, it's not that hard. Not like a car. So anyway, I extrapolate and interpolate, you know, like anybody else would do. But it's always based on the statements of the company, except when I just don't have anything to go off of. So that's how I do it. And a lot of times it does have to do with interpolation, because if he's saying, I want 1 trillion terawatt, I want 1 terawatt of energy storage by 2030, well, then I do an interpolation and I say, well, what does it take to get there? Okay. You can't do, 10 this year, and then in 2029, all of a sudden ramp up to 1 terawatt. You've got to ramp. You're going to be slowly building that. So I try to interpolate that and say, how do you get there from here? What do you need to do now and next year and in 25 and in 27 in order to get to that number? So those are some of the ways that I come up with my numbers. And yes, I am also an optimist.
Yeah. You're a giant optimist, and I thought I was the optimist, but you're a little bit further than I am. Tell me about the story about you did a video on perception matters more than reality, which I actually totally agree with. So I'm curious how you've interpreted that.
Well, perception always matters more than reality. I mean, in every aspect of life. I love what's called stadium theory. I don't know if you've ever heard of stadium theory. Stadium theory says that when there is a play on the field and it's a close play, every single person that's wearing red saw it one way, and everybody that's wearing blue saw it differently. And they might even get into fights and hit each other as a result of not agreeing with what happened on that play. So they have perceived it. Not only have they perceived it differently from their angle, because their glasses are better or not as good, or because their eyes are better or not as good, or because they understand the play better. None of that matters. What matters is that's my team. So there's an internal thing that's going on. So that perception versus reality thing works throughout everything that we do in life, but it really impacts investments. So if I'm trying to decide whether to buy a stock or not buy a stock, I have the fear greed curve thing going on. You know, I've got the how much information do I have that the street doesn't have thing going on. I have the who do I believe? Do I believe the company or do I believe the punditry? There's all of this stuff going on in order to come to some kind of a conclusion with regard to whether I invest or don't invest, or whether I'm invested and I decide this is a great time to pull out. I'm trying to look at the overall market, the macro. How much have I studied economics? How much have I studied, past bull markets and past bear markets? How much have I studied what happens in a recession and what happens after a recession? What do I know about boom bust economies and what that does to the flow of products? And if you get really, really old, like me, then you've been through so many boom busts and you've been through so many recessions that you start to see these patterns. But it doesn't matter. The thing is I've got my own perception, and my perception is also flawed. It's really imperfect, but it's all I got to go on. And so that's what we're facing right now. And that's why I keep talking about Tesla, which I think was, why I said it this morning is because Tesla is a major story stock. And what does story stock mean? It means there's a story and everybody has a perception about the story. So you're not even talking about reality. It's not like that's my hand and it has 5 fingers on it. And now we have to decide whether that's a long lifeline or a short lifeline or whatever. No, we're talking about a story that has been developed by a genius operator who goes out and tells the story. And now we have to interpret that story through our perceptive lens.
Yeah, no, for sure. For sure. I mean, Tesla is a story stock. It's a beta stock, and consumer sentiment matters. And then that's where people, last year, 2022, people got so bearish because of the macro. They started going, well, now I'm going to value the PE ratio based on exact earnings is going to be next year because you did price cuts. Now my earnings are going to be this much. Let's translate that back to what it's worth now. But however, back to a boom market, the perception is that this is a tech company, it's an AI company. Now people are willing to have higher PE ratios all of a sudden, which I was saying, why did you even change it 6 months ago? Nothing has changed except your fear. Your own fear has changed your decision of why you think it needs to be based on actual earnings, because things like Robotaxi and Optimus. Now, if you don't believe that Robotaxi and Optimus is going to happen by 2026, but I think the funny thing is you did a poll and we're doing lots of polls and we're seeing that people are now shrinking, compressing when they think these two will happen. It's no longer impossible. They're now 5 years. It's likely going to happen like your wonderful poll that you just did. So even if you pull those out, the car at this point, no one is debating anymore. Is Tesla going to grow in their electric vehicle? It's harder for folks to debate that part.
If you took both of those out, by 2026, it reduces it from from
400.
400. No, I'm sorry, I'm forgetting now. Anyway,
Yeah.
it was 3 and 1. So yeah, so reduce it by 75%.
Yeah, it was
So
421 billion.
Yeah.
You're going to reduce it by
300 billion. Yeah.
Yeah, by 300 billion. So it becomes 120, which is like I said, it's like
that's Apple.
1/3 or where you're at. Yeah, it's where Apple is, right? Yeah. 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 So like I said, just the cars alone and the energy is enough to take this company to be larger than Apple.
Apple.
Just that alone. Yeah. Yeah, that's wonderful. Okay, so that's good. So tell me just a little bit about what's happening with the market now. We're getting into the bull market. People are starting to feel it. They're starting to get ahead of it with AI being the driver. And so now things you've been saying, I think that when people are saying being bullish when it's really a recession, it's really hard for many people to stomach that. But at the same time, you have courage. You have real courage to maintain that optimism. I was like that as well, but it feels like now things are changing and people are willing to accept these stories again. So tell me what you're thinking about what's happening.
So I think, again, I've written a book on recessions. So I've studied recessions in great detail. This particular recession, if it ever actually was one, completely different than any other one ever. And I mentioned a couple of minutes ago, this whole boom bust issue. Well, I was in the bicycle business my entire life. I've other businesses that were not bicycle related, primarily advertising specialty. But in the bicycle business, we saw boom bust over and over and over again. Sometime it was because mountain bikes came out and there was a boom and everybody had to have one. And then all of a sudden, maybe they didn't need as many and then you have a bust. Well, when you have these boom bust cycles, what happens is that everybody in the pipeline has to build out maximums. So the retailer is yelling, I need more bikes, I need more bikes, I need more bikes. He's yelling that at the importer. The importer's yelling at the manufacturer. The manufacturer's yelling at his suppliers. And everybody is starting to build up manufacturing capability. They're building up their inventories and they're trying to somehow fill the marketplace. But then there comes this day when everybody that wants one has one, because there was this situation where the market didn't have enough of them. And so everybody's scrambling and now everybody overbuilds. And that thing is throughout the pipeline. So the retailer goes, I've got bicycles piled up against my wall. I may never need another one. Yeah. He's yelling at the importer and saying, no, I can't take any more and I can't pay you for the ones I got. And the importer is yelling at the manufacturer in China. He's saying, no, I can't take any more now. And the Chinese guy is going, what am I going to do? So that is how these boom busts work. Well, we had the bust in COVID, which there was nothing to buy. And everybody's got all this money in their pocket with nothing to buy. Then we came out of COVID and everybody's got the money and now they want to buy it, but nobody has any because the manufacturing was all shut down. So now all the manufacturers and all the retailers, all the wholesalers are going like, I need more, I need more, I need more. And they're doing everything they can get to get more. I've done this. I've been on 2 phones at once at certain times in my life, trying to find some raw materials or trying to find a production facility to do what I needed done. And you're going crazy. I can sell more. I can sell more. Just get me some. And then, so we went through that. And now last year at Christmas, we had enough of a lot of things. And that's why the retailers were like, oh my gosh, we can't sell it. We've got too much. And the retail stocks took a hit. Now we're finally getting, and inflation went up prior to that. But by September, inflation had peaked and inflation started coming down. And the market had bottomed in October and it started going up. The market realized inflation was coming down. They realized they got it. And they saw that the boom bust was finally going to come to an end. And by 6 months, 8 months from then, people would have kind of be back to kind of even about the amount of stuff they needed. And there would be a normal flow of commerce. And so the market started going up and wholesalers and retailers and manufacturers started getting more optimistic in terms of we can figure this out. And so you didn't see massive layoffs. That's what
Mm-hmm.
you normally see in a recession. You didn't even see big cutbacks. People were saying, no, I love these employees. I'm going to keep them if I can. And so we're sitting here with people yelling recession, 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 and yet the unemployment number is at 3.7,
Right. Yep.
which is full employment. That's, it's literally what it is. So other countries didn't do quite as well as the United States, and they're still working on it. But in the United States, in my opinion, from what I'm seeing, we now have the right amount of inventory in most categories. Inflation is probably down around 2.5. The Fed doesn't get it yet because they're counting so much on entertainment services and housing rentals. Zillow, Redfin, just go down the line. They're all reporting that rents are going up at about 1%. So the Fed is 2 months behind on their data. And so they don't know that the rents are only going up 1%. So anyway, it's just another couple of months. The Fed, they say they're not going to lower rates later this year. They're going to be forced to, because it'll be nuts to have 1 or 2% inflation and 5.5% treasuries.
Good. Okay. Well, there you go. Very optimistic. Good, but based on data that you've seen in the past. Great conversation, Randy. I really appreciate this. It makes me think now, how likely do I think that Robotaxi and Optimus will be available? Like I've been saying, I think Optimus is here sooner than people think. Many people disagree with me on that. The Robotaxi one, I really don't know at this point. I know that the technology's there, and I don't know yet how the business will necessarily roll out. But like I keep saying, the stock is a different thing, and you kind of explained at the end there that it's a story stock. So once people see that these progress is happening and the products are actually viable, that's almost enough, especially when you have massive consequences. If Robotaxi is successful, if Optimus is successful, then I think you'll see the stock jump ahead of it, and then people start buying ahead of it as soon as they whiff any whiff at all that it's a possibility that's about to come sooner than later. Thank you so much, Randy. Appreciate this. This was great. That was fun. See you guys. Bye, everybody.